Good morning, everyone. We're going to be writing the next two paragraphs in our Edward Tulane chapter today. So we're going to jump straight into it by sharing our screen, my screen. So today we're going to be writing paragraphs 3 and 4 of our Edward Tulane missing chapter. So to warm yourself up as you do now, what you're going to do is you're going to go back through your book and you're going to have a read over your last two chapters, so the first paragraph, and the second paragraph that you have written, just to remind yourself where your story is. Okay, so I'm just going to reread it to myself, tumbling down the hill. So I'd like you to pause the video, go back and read your first two paragraphs and remind yourself where your story is. Once you've done that, come back and press play. Okie dokie. So today we're going to be writing paragraph 3, which is where we learn about Edward's life with his new owners. Okay, so we're going to be going back into our plan to have a look at what we wrote. So if I was to go back to my book and have a look at my plan, I wrote, or what I planned out, my daily life with my new owner. I wrote down that Edward would watch lessons, learn maths, he would have a favourite subject, maybe help in tests, and that the problem that I would introduce at the end of the paragraph was that a new student would arrive. Okay, so I've checked with my plan. All right, so I'd like you to pause the video, go back and check your plan to see what you had intended to write about Edward doing with his new owners. Once you've done that, come back and press play. Okay, so our third paragraph, when we were with Bull and Lucy, we're going to use that as our model for how we write our new paragraph. So it says, life with Bull and Lucy was fun. Edward spent his days joyfully riding on Bull's shoulders and travelling in empty freight cars. At night they slept on the ground underneath the stars. The constellations reminded him of Lawrence, though he felt happy with Bull. Everything was just fine until the night they were discovered on the train. So, looking at the beginning of each of those sentences, it's got life with Bull and Lucy, Edward spent at night, the constellation, everything was fine, and until. All of those sentences start a little bit differently. They do not use the same words to begin it over and over and over. That makes our writing more interesting, so we're going to make sure that we're prioritising that in our writing today. So looking at the structure of our paragraphs, we've got how did the main character, Edward, feel about his new life? What did he do every day? A second thing that he did, and finally we're going to introduce the problem. So it's going to be my turn, your turn, as I write this paragraph. So the first sentence I'm going to write is, how did Edward feel about his life with either the circus, a pilot, or a teacher? So you might say it was easy, fun, joyful, pleasant, exciting, adventurous, anything you like. So I'm going to come across to my paper. Okay, if you're writing on the same page, remember to leave 2 lines. In fact, I think I might have just enough space. I do underneath my last paragraph there, so I can go 1, 2, and I'll be writing on this one. So, oh, sorry. Life, pen's running out. Life with, I might not change that. Instead of saying life with, I've changed my mind, and it's perfectly okay to change your mind in a sentence. Okay. Instead of saying life with Miss Light, I'm actually going to say what his life is like. Life as a teacher's assistant, life as a pilot, a co-pilot, life as a circus performer, however you like. Life as a teacher's assistant. And you can just say was fun, was exciting, anything you like, was fun. One nice short sentence just to introduce what life was like. And now I can tick off. How did Edward feel? He enjoyed it. Perfect. So I'd like you to pause the screen now and I'd like you to write one sentence just like this one here. Life with such and such was fun. Pause the screen, and once you've done that, come back and press play. Okay, so we're going to now move on to what did they actually do. So when Edward was with Bull, it said Edward spent his days joyfully riding on Bull's shoulders and travelling in empty freight cars. So you might say, sitting on Miss Light's desk, Edward did, watched as the children did maths and numbers and so on. During the day, Edward trained with the lions and jumped through fiery rings, or flying somewhere new every day, Edward saw such and such country. Okay, so have a think to yourself, check back in with your plan, and I'm going to have a go on mine. So what might he do? Edward sat pride of place. That means he's in like a very important position. Pride of place. On Miss Light's desk. Miss Light's desk. And I'll continue down. Watching over the children in the morning. As they learned. Remember to write on every second line so that you can add in your corrections afterwards. And I might just suggest a few things that they've done. What do we do? As they learned poetry, numbers, and drawing. And full stop there. Okay, so your turn now. So writing about 2 or 3 things that Edward does, and maybe specify, like I did, that I said this was in the morning, so that when I write the second thing, it will be in the afternoon or at a different time of the day. Okay, so pause the video now and write down what you think Edward would have gotten up to with the pilot, the circus, or the teacher. Off you go. Okie dokie, welcome back. So now we're going to write, what else did he do? So we knew that during the day when he was with Bull, he would ride on Bull's shoulders and travel in empty freight cars. And then it goes on to say, at night they slept on the ground underneath the stars. The constellations reminded him of Lawrence, though he felt happy with Bull. So we're going to add another thing that Edward got up to with his new companions, maybe in the evenings or when the sun set, under the night sky, or as soon as the sun went down, or maybe it's just at the weekends or in the afternoon. It's just a different time of the day. It's a great way to use a fronted adverbial at the start of our sentence to add that detail. So coming across to mine, I'm going to do in the afternoons. In the afternoons, comma for the end of my fronted adverbial, he got to be part of his favorite lesson and I'm going to separate it with a comma. Now, his favorite lesson is geography, but he's a rabbit. He might not know how that's spelled. So I actually can have a little bit of fun here. So I've got a semicolon to separate this information. Something called and now I'm going to spell it how it sounds. Geography. Geography. Because Edward doesn't really know how it's spelled. So this is a nice way of showing that he's heard the word, but he doesn't know what it is. So, and I'm just going to elaborate. What does that mean? He learned all about fascinating places in the world. Okay, so pause the video here. What fun things might Edward have got up to? What might have been his favourite thing? Was his favourite thing riding on the trolleys through the airport? Or saying hello to the passengers as they entered or left the aeroplane? Was his favourite thing being shot out of a cannon every night? Or dangling from the air on top of a tightrope? Or was his favourite thing one of the lessons he did with the children? So just think for a minute. if he's in the circus, what's his favourite thing? If he's in the a teacher's room, what's his favourite thing? And if he's a pilot's assistant, what's his favourite thing? And I'd like you to take a moment to write out what did he enjoy and when did it happen. Right, so pause the video, off you go. Okay, now that you've written that, we're going to do one final sentence where we're going to introduce the problem. Okay, now the problem is just a short sentence. It's not going to be, and then the terrible flight assistant threw him out the window. No, we're just going to make our reader nervous by saying something like, everything was fine until the night they were discovered on a train. So we might have until, or sadly, or everything changed that night. Nice short, sharp sentence. So just now going to come across onto mine, and we're going to write something. So I'm gonna first make it feel really good. He loves being there, and then I'm going to create that tension. The children loved including Edward. Oh, I'm going to say Teddy because that's his name, including Teddy in their lessons. Everything was great. And then I might use until. So I've got a lovely short, sharp sentence. It's like, yes. And then a short, sharp sentence, and you go, no. Everything was great until. Remember, you can always use the vocabulary that you used last week that was really good. It's always good to use that bit of information or something you did really well. Use it again. Until the day the new student arrived. And I'm going to add just one more little bit of information. The day of the field trip. I'm just setting it up for tomorrow, for the next paragraph, sorry, to when they go on a field trip. The day of the F-I-E-L-D field trip. Okay. So I've set it up. Everything was great. Yay. Oh, until the day the new student arrived, the day of the field trip. So let me just tick off. What else did they do? And introduce the problem. So your turn now. Pause the screen now. Once you've done that, come back and press play to go through our editing. All right, welcome back. So we're just going to edit our paragraph. So I'm going to come back to the start of it now. I'm looking for full stops, capital letters, apostrophes, everything, grammar, spelling, punctuation. Life with the teacher's assistant was fun. Edward sat pride of place on Miss Lights. Miss Lights. Her name is not Miss Lights. That S is to show that she owns the desk. It's possessive, which means I need an apostrophe. If somebody owns it, you need an apostrophe. Watching over the children in the morning as they learned poetry, numbers, and drawing. In the afternoons, making sure that my F looks like an F. In the afternoons, he got to be part of his favourite lesson, something called geography. He learned all about fascinating places in the nope, that's not spelled right, in the world, adding that L in the world. The children loved including Teddy in their lessons. Everything was great until the day the new student arrived, the day of the field trip. Fantastic. I've checked for capital letters, spelling, grammar, and punctuation. So pause the video now, and I would like you to go away and write that paragraph. Go away and do that editing. Once you've done that, come back to write your next paragraph, paragraph 4. Okay, now that we've written our third paragraph, we're going to move straight into our fourth paragraph today. All right, which is where we talk about this problem and we introduce the problem that is going to, in our last paragraph, mean that Edward has to leave. So before we do that, we're going to go, let me go across the right screen. We're going to go across back to our plan. So opening up our book again and going back to the plan. Okay, so I'm just going to review what I wrote down. You can adapt it, of course, but it's always helpful to check your plan. So it takes place on a field trip. Mel, so I've got a name for him, the new student, thinks Edward is a baby toy and hates him. And so I know that that's going to be the problem in this paragraph. All right, so I'd like you to pause the video and go and check your plan. What's your problem going to be? How or why is that going to be a problem? What will you be writing about? Okay, once you've done that, come back and we're going to check what we're going to be writing about. Okay, so in the original Bull and Lucy paragraph, we had a paragraph about a man coming in. So let's have a reread of that to see what was written in that paragraph. A man with a torch stormed into the freight car and aggressively kicked Bull to wake him. He was a tall man who was stocky and wore a hat like a cowboy. "You bum," he shouted, "I'm sick of you guys sleeping on my trains." Turning red with rage, he thrust his boot into Lucy's side so hard that it made her yelp. Edward wished he could move. All he wanted to do was help. So we've got really strong words: stormed, thrust, and yelp. What's the effect of those words? Why do we use those instead of just he kicked Lucy, he walked onto the freight car? Well, it's because they're more powerful. They really bring up an image in your mind of what this person is doing, okay? I understand that he's really aggressive because he stormed in and he thrust his root. I understand that Lucy is in a lot of pain because she yelped, okay? So we're going to try and include some of those words in our writing today to make it more interesting. So our fourth paragraph follows this structure. The new person, we're going to describe them. They're going to say something. They're going to react about that, and we're going to discuss how does Edward feel. We're not going to have this problem get rid of Edward yet. That's not the point. We're just describing their encounter with Edward and why they don't like him. So let's start. The first thing I'm going to write about is describing the person. So looking back at the original or the model text, I've got a man with a torch stormed into a freight car and aggressively kicked Bull to wake him. He was a tall man who was stocky and wore a hat like a cowboy. So you might say that this person bounded in, hurtled in, or stomped in. They marched in, stamped in. So we could use these strong vocabularies, words to really add a detail to our writing. So, excuse me, I've got a bit of a sore throat. So, I keep going to that screen. Going across to mine, I'm going to introduce this character. Remember, it's a new paragraph, so I need to skip 2 lines, coming down to the next one here. So I'm going to introduce. I'm just going to check the last sentence I wrote to make sure this makes sense. Everything was great until the day the new student arrived, the day of the field trip. Mel, I'm just going to introduce him by name. If your character doesn't have a name, you can just say the man or the person. Mel, now instead of walked in, what's another word for walked I could use? Wandered in. I want to make him sound really arrogant, so I'm going to say Mel sauntered in. When you saunter, it's like you're really arrogant or really cocky, like you are the most important person in the world. Mel sauntered into Miss Light's room like he owned the place. Okay, and I'm going to describe what he looked like. So you can just have a think to yourself, how do you want this person to look? I'm going to say he was a small boy. And I'm going to say with, conjunction here, with an upturned nose. And I really want the audience, the reader, to understand that he's not nice. So I'm going to say, and a mean look about him. So just have a think to yourself, why is this person? So I've said that Mel doesn't like Edward. That's why he's going to get rid of him. So I want him to look mean. If your problem person is somebody who is stealing Edward because they want him for themselves, then maybe they're going to have a jealous look about them as opposed to a mean look about them. So just really think about why they're doing it before you describe them. So I'd like you to pause the screen, have a go at writing the description of your problem character, remembering to separate as it is at the start of a new paragraph. Okay, now that you've done that, we're going to move into what do they say? Okay, what's the problem? So, in the Bull and Lucy story, we had, "You bum," he shouted. "I'm sick of you guys sleeping on my train." So this shows a lot of aggression. So you might say, "Who put this rabbit here?" Or, "What on earth is this stupid thing?" We don't need to bring this old thing, do we? Okay, so have a think. What's the purpose of this speech? Is it to move the story forward? Is he saying, "I'm going to chuck this out the window"? No, not yet. This is to give me an idea about how your character feels about the rabbit. Are they jealous? Are they just curious? Are they really angry? Okay, so think about it. You're trying to show how the character feels about Edward in this speech. Oh goodness me, I keep doing that. There we go. So I'm going to come back to mine and I'm going to make sure it sounds like he is Edward. So I've described them. Now I am doing what do they say. So he immediately spotted Edward as the class. Now, I want to say, because I've said he's in the classroom here, but I did say in my plan, it was going to be that it takes place on a field trip. So I need to make sure I've actually changed the scenery. He immediately spotted Edward as the class was climbing into the school bus. And now I'm going to have this speech that makes me know he hates Edward. So, whose stupid doll is this? So, speech marks, capital letter. Whose stupid doll, we know Edward hates being called a doll, so it's a huge insult to him, is this? Question mark, speech marks. And now I need to say who said it. So, whose stupid doll is this? He demanded. Okay, but actually might add, I don't think that's enough. So I'm going to put a comma instead of a full stop because I want my sentence to continue. New speech marks, capital letter. Why is a baby's doll coming on our trip? Question mark, close speech marks. Okay, so I can really see he hates Edward because he doesn't just call him a stupid doll. He then wants to, why is a baby doll coming on our trip? So I put what he says. So your turn now. I'd like you to pause the screen. I'd like you to write what will your meanie character say that lets me know they hate Edward or that they're jealous of Edward or that they're curious about Edward. So pause the screen and come back once you've done that. Okay, so we're going to move on to how do they react. So it says, turning red with rage, he thrust his boot into Lucy's side so hard that it made her yelp. So our mean character does something aggressive or rude to Edward. So we might start with filling with fury, or angry that they didn't move, or outraged, or turning as red as a tomato, or irritated and angry. There's lots of options, okay? So I'm going to come to my book. I'm saying maybe he just looks unimpressed because he doesn't like Edward. So looking unimpressed. Looking unimpressed, he reached out and what could he do to Edward? Maybe he hits him. Maybe he covers him up. What does he do? So Edward's sitting in a seat for my story. So I'm going to say he's going to knock him out of his seat and take his seat. So he reached out and hit Edward. That seems a bit cruel. And hit Edward so that, lovely conjunction there, so that he fell on the floor. Okay? And he's going to be even more cruel. Then Mel kicked Edward. Kicked him under the seat and sat in Edward's, remember the apostrophe because it's Edward owns it, Edward's seat. So I'm really rubbing in salt in that room. Right, so I've done how do they react. So just thinking to yourself, if you're doing like a flight attendant, is clumsy with him, what's she gonna do? Does she sit him precariously on the edge of the, I don't know, the trolley of food? Just thinking to yourself, if it's the, is he being shot out of a cannon, but some evil person puts way too much explosive powder in there and explodes Edward far off, I don't know, whatever you want to write about, okay? So pause the video here and go away and write that sentence. What mean thing do they do to either one of the characters who the owners of Edward, or that they do to Edward himself, okay? Lovely. And the last thing we're going to write now is how does Edward feel? So Edward wished he could move. All he wanted to do was help. Maybe he could say he wished he could do something. Why was he made of china? Edward hated being made of china. He wanted to help. He wanted to do something, but he couldn't. All right, my turn, coming across to mine. How does Edward feel? Well, Edward was furious. You can say whatever feeling you like. Edward is furious, full stop. None of the other children treated him this way. None of the children treated him this way. Full stop. But what could he do? So you could use a rhetorical question here, but what could he do? He was face down on the floor and no one had noticed. All right, so how does my main character feel? Check, done that. He is furious. Right, your turn. Pause the video now, write that last sentence. Once you've done that, come back and press play for our editing. Okie dokie, welcome back. The last thing we're going to do before we finish for the day is to edit our work. Remember, we edit in a new pen and we go through, a different color pen that is, and we go through, we look for spelling errors, grammar errors, punctuation things we've missed out, anything like that. So here we go. I'm going to do mine, then it's going to be your turn. Mel sauntered into Miss Lights. Right, I see an issue with Lights. It is a name. Names need a capital letter, but also there's another error. Miss Lights, her name isn't Miss Lights, it's Miss Light, which means the S is the possessive S because it is she owns the room, so I need an apostrophe. Mel sauntered into Miss Light's room like he owned the place. He was a small boy with an upturned nose and a mean look about him. He immediately spotted Edward. Edward needs a capital letter, it is a name. As the class was climbing into the school bus. Whose stupid doll is this? He demanded. Let me check. Speech marks, capital letter, punctuation, speech marks. Good. Why is the baby doll coming on our trip? Let me check. Speech marks, capital, oh, no capital letter. Why is a baby doll? Punctuation, speech marks. Excellent. I'm going to keep going. Looking unimpressed, he reached out and hit Edward so that he fell on the floor. Then Mel kicked him under the seat and sat in Edward's seat. Okay, I'm happy with that. Edward was furious. None of the other children treated. Oh, that's not how you spell treated. Let me fix that up. Treated has the EA special friend, so it should be TREATED. If you're not sure, get a dictionary, check on Google, or ask a grown-up. Treated him this way, but what could he do? He was face down on the floor and no one had noticed. Lovely, so I can go and up-level my work and maybe add in some extra vocabulary to really make my sentences more interesting. Then Merle cruelly kicked him under the seat and sat in Edward's seat. Edward was furious. Okay, I'm happy with that. So go through, check for any vocabulary errors, any errors with your punctuation, any errors, with your speech marks in particular, and capital letters for names, please. Once you've done that, please take a photo and upload it onto Seesaw for us so that we can give you some feedback. I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!